if he's got it. Okay.
Here we go. My limo got here. My limo pulled up late. I'm sorry to be late for the show.
That's all right. I just got out of hair and makeup. They didn't do a good job, but at least I'm back. I was going to show a little bit. So I want to tell everybody, welcome to Lunch with Lumbermen. Matt Lehman from Lehman's Lumber Guide, Ashley Buckle from mxlumber.com or materialsexchange.com. Also wanted to show a little bit more where Matt and I talk about his lumber guide, his insight into the lumber market from not only what he sees as what's going on, but Matt has a lot of valuable input, tons of valuable input put from his select group of people that are in the industry all over the United States that he's and he gains more every day that really gives you a lot of knowledge that they don't tell many other people. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's really pretty unique that they've gotten where they share it with each other, like in confidence. But it makes you realize that there is the value of the information that you just share with, like, I'm buying, I'm not buying, here's what I'm seeing, and the momentum things are just, to me, they're tremendously valuable.
Exactly. And so I'm streaming on a couple of different venues now. I just launched, I know MX does a Twitter stream. I'm doing a Twitter stream, and somehow somebody reboosted me last night. So I got about 300 more followers, which is great. So that's why I wanted to talk a little bit more about your product also, and about things so you can get some potential users off of that have never seen this or heard about us before. So what Matt
I should probably do Twitter. I just don't. I've never been not a big fan, but
well, you know how I did it. I just started doing it. I didn't have any idea how to, right? But just signed up. I don't think there's anything special to it. But
yeah, what do you think the primary social media is for the lumber industry?
Well, I think it used to, well, I think there's a bunch of different ways that people get their knowledge. You know, as you and I know, it used to be smoke signals at first, right?
Yeah.
Then the phone was invented sometime, and
telexes, yeah.
So I personally, this is just my opinion. I think LinkedIn is one, but I think that is a different demographic, and I think sometimes people are afraid to post different stuff on there, or different thoughts. Twitter, I was uncertain about it, but there's a lot of people on Twitter that are lumber traders that are all different ages, from all over the place, and it's interesting how they send you direct messages and talk a little bit more where they may not have on other venues, if that makes sense. Right. Which yeah. I wouldn't have really believed before until I saw it. I'm like, oh, that person's on, that girl's on, that guy's on, and they're actually commenting a lot more. So it's worth looking into. It's pretty cool. So what Matt and I do every week is we talk about what's going on from Matt's perspective, my perspective. Matt really digs deep into it in his Layman's Lumber Guide, both from a technical and I'm trying to think of the two different standpoints of trading: technical and
fundamental,
and just the general knowledge of what we think is going on, fundamental, and we think there's an important part of both of them. And man, I learn a lot every show. I think it's good to expose this to people. So I was coming in a little bit cold because I have some stuff going on at home today that I'm working on. But I wanted to let's talk a little bit about last week, this week. So we made a significant sell-off in lumber. It started with Southern Pine probably 2 weeks ago. I'm just getting rough in here. Then panels followed through. Spruce stayed a little sticky the way it's reported, but there was a lot of trades well underneath what that published price was. And I'm not convinced that it still doesn't have some weakness in it. But again, I don't have an axe to grind here. It's just, I look at that spread between, and Mike always points to that spread between Southern Yellow Pine and all the other species is getting so wide. But it goes back to what you talked about months ago about the do-it-yourself stores. If they're backing off and people are backing off building decks and all that, Southern Pine is not a surprise seeing the weakness in it, right? And
right.
where it really got a value out of this whole COVID spike from, mid 2020 until a few months ago, had a good run, and it's still it's still at a great price. So I threw a bunch of stuff out there at you, Matt. What's your feeling from what you talked about, and this bounce that we've had, this bite that we've had I'd say the last 2 or 3 days, is something that you were kind of projecting a little bit not what you were, right?
Yeah, the FTPs picked week number 15, which was last week, to be a low, and the prices should bounce this week, and it projects it to go for about a 6-week run. One of the things I've tried to do, Ash, lately is since the FTPs are 86% accurate, I've really been trying to focus on where's that 14% miss one going to come.
Yeah.
And I think the miss is going to come at the next peak. I think the peak is going to come early. I think our highs are already in. It's funny, you listen to shows on TV and everybody's talking about, well, the economy is bullish, but housing is bullish, but we're underbuilt, but everybody's got this reason. They got, like, they want to be, so Jory will talk about it. Housing is nothing but it's a pig with lipstick on it. Housing is in trouble. And the reason it's in trouble is because I think the home builders are in denial about thinking that because they have homes sold and the potential owners have $50,000, $100,000 of equity in those homes, they won't walk away from them. But in a lot of cases, they don't have any choice when you've got interest rates that have gone from 2.5% to 5%. And their price of their payments are going to be 40% higher than when they bought the house. They're just not going to qualify, and you're not going to have a choice about walking away from it. They're just not going to be able to keep it. And I think that we started the year talking about completions. I think we're going to see a rapid acceleration in completions, and the completions are going to get caught up with a combination of cancellations and lack of starts. But I think the second half of this year it's going to be, in the lumber market, it's going to be a recession. In the general economy, it takes 3 months of collective data to say, yeah, it's gone to hell in a handbasket. All right, it's certainly down, but by the time the economy acknowledges a recession, the lumber market's going to probably be halfway through it.
Yeah, so I had an economist on yesterday, a friend of mine, Brian Westbury. We were talking. I think he sees at some point probably a recession. He didn't see it until later, maybe 23 or something. And what he said about housing was interesting, and is a point I never really thought about. Okay, you got a 5% interest rate on a mortgage, but you have a 5 to 10% year-over-year appreciation on a house. Your real time is still positive, right? So even though people are there, is there a certain amount of people?
I got to challenge that a little bit. You get a 5% increase over 1 year, and it's a wash. But year number 2, you get no appreciation or you get depreciation. You still have a 5% mortgage rate.
Yeah, nobody looks at 2 years out. They look at what just happened, though, right?
Yeah, and that's, we got 19% last year at 2%. Well, that's nice. But so now we're going to go from 19% appreciation to 2.5% interest rates to 5 and 5. Well, that's a radical reversal from 20 and 2.
Well, real quick, let's bring up the FDP, because I want people that have never seen the FDP. If Jory could bring that up to show that, and it'll show a little bit about what your guide does. And I can't see any of the comments. So if there's any questions, if anybody has them, if Jory could bring them up, because it's not, my LinkedIn isn't showing live on my account, but she could bring them up on here if that's okay. So Matt, for the people that have never seen this before, let's talk a little bit about this and what you meant when you said week 15.
Yeah, week number 15. If you see the arrow at the end of the red section there, you can see that's where the market bottomed, and it shows a trend coming up into week number 21. So we bottomed right on week number 21, week number 15, and we got a bounce. We got our midweek numbers this week are going to show higher prices, and the market is moving up. Now, how much it goes, I don't know. Again, this is a timing mechanism. It shows that the market should go up until week number 21, which is a 6-week rally. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to scream up $500, $600. It just means that the prices at week number 21 are likely going to be higher than they were at week number 15. So that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes absolute sense. So before we go to the next slide, I want to bring up one other point. We were talking, so if housing starts came out this week, and that divergence between permits and completions just keeps getting wider and wider, right? It's like,
but that's not a surprise. I mean, I don't know why everybody's so shocked about that. The builders told us the beginning of the year they were going to spend January, February, and March building and starting. That's what they were going to do. They were going to spend the second 3 quarters of the year, or the third 3 quarters of the year, completing. And that's just the March data that shows that they're doing exactly what they said they were going to do, which is start homes. And if they do what they said they were going to do, they're going to stop starting as many. Permits are going to start leveling off. And I noticed the number. I saw that, like, there's a 1 point last year we had 1.49 completions. So we have the ability to increase completions, but I still think we're going to end the year at about a 1.5 completions and starts together. They're going to converge. It's going to feel like in the lumber market that nobody wants any lumber, but it's just that we're so far ahead on the starts portion and behind on completions. That's where we're going to end up focusing, and we're.
So I'm just wondering, with all the government payouts basically ending, and we talked a little bit about this, and I saw one of the big multifamily builders in Texas put something out that said jobs that historically he was holding, it would take him 4 months to complete, and 100 truckload job that he wanted to spread it out over 4 months. He's telling people to ship it now because all of a sudden a whole bunch of labor that they didn't see showed up, and they've got labor. Now, there's 2 potential reasons for that, right? One, if 1 million people did cross the border, there's going to be some labor down in Texas, some extra labor to disperse to job sites. I mean,
exactly. Yep.
Makes sense, right? So that'll get stuff. 2, that housing starts, single family didn't look very strong yesterday. It's the multifamily that was the real deal. And 3, with a lot of these government subsidies, payouts, all that kind of stuff, pretty much coming to an end. People are going to their bank accounts and seeing them down. They got to get back to work at this point. I mean,
exactly. Everybody's been talking about how much savings everybody has. Yeah. But you look at, I was just thinking, like, we watched, I think Ryan's going to think about Twitter. It should have been actually Netflix, but Netflix lost like 1 million subscribers. Their stock is down like 2/3 or whatever from where it was on its high. But if everybody's got so much money and only 1/3 of the people using Netflix are even paying for it, why you got to cut out $17 for your primary source of entertainment for television? Yeah,
I think people just ran out of stuff to watch on there. It almost is mind numbing at a certain point. But
I disagree, man. I'm hooked.
Yeah, but what you said is, I think, yeah, Netflix stock is down, but United Airlines and American Airlines is up today. So people are going to travel. Well, exactly.
We talked about that.
Doesn't it kind of make sense that if nobody's sitting at home anymore watching movies, that probably has used its life cycle for the short term, right? I mean,
I just find it difficult to think that if you're here in the 1st of May, you're getting ready to go on vacation. You're 1 week or 2 weeks of vacation in the summer. That part of your thought process is, I'm going to cut Netflix off for 3 months. Yeah, I think it's more of a looking at your entire budget and realizing that your slush fund that you got in the bank from savings last year was government money. You didn't really save any money. You just spent it, and you're spending it faster than it's not going to be coming in. So I just think it's inevitable that I saw this morning, just a little while ago, that Bullard, one of the Fed chairman, the Fed president, Bullard, said that we're just way behind on inflation. We're just chasing it. We can't catch up. So we're going to see some interest rate spikes, and and people are going to get. I mean, they're going to respond in kind. They're going to go like when the Fed says we're behind, we screwed up. We got to make you guys stop spending. And if somebody starts to, you put the choke around somebody's neck and says stop spending, sooner or later they will.
Yeah.
And I went to do some grocery shopping for my mother who's in assisted living. The same 4 bags, 5 bags of groceries and little goodies that she needs for where she lives was $35 last year. It's $100 right now. The very same list,
Yeah.
and it's up 60%. And it's just grocery store nitpicky things. But that's pervasive throughout everything. And the only thing that I want to suggest, I just want to encourage about on the lumber side of things, we always see it first. The lumber industry sees the beginning of an expansion. It sees the beginning of a recession. It sees the beginning of a slowdown. It is a lumber market. Softwood framing lumber market is the leading indicator of what's going on, and we're going to see a significant slowdown. There's not going to be a lumber shortage. There's going to be plenty of lumber in the second half this year, and I think you're going to be feeling like we're in a recession by summertime.
Well, do you think there's a lumber shortage now, or it was more of a logistical problem where the wood was in the pipeline?
Now, I think there was a legitimate shortage in the first 3 months of the year when the builders were aggressively building more starts. They were consuming more lumber, but it wasn't a sustainable. It never was intended to be a sustainable volume. I don't think the lumber market is underproduced. I think it's at the very minimum adequately produced, but it's going to feel like it's overproduced in the second to third quarters of the year.
I was watching a comment the other day on Twitter. I'm going to keep. A person said one of his southern yellow pine mills was down for a few weeks. They put some CapEx spending in to increase productivity, and they increased their output by 30%. I mean, if you think about this, mills are doing whatever they can to produce whatever they can as fast as they can, especially in the South. When you have the lowest cost fiber base, the lowest cost of production, you are going to shoot that out like the Play-Doh Fun Factory if you can.
And there are no late shipments coming out of the South.
No.
Transportation is getting better, and nobody's saying they're getting loads early, but they're getting 2-week wood in 2 weeks, and it's gonna, as that 2 weeks gets to be not as urgent, then it's going to be 1 week wood's going to be 1 week, and prompt wood's going to be prompt. But that said, we're in a spot right now where the market's experiencing a fill-in rally to get kind of prepared for whatever their underage is for spring. But summer and spring are going to be summer and fall are going to be a disappointment for expectations. We're going to start to see Lowe's and Home Depot and the big boys also adjust their targets down for the year because they're just. I mean, we know the wood's not moving. The single family, multifamily business for independent dealers is very good, but home center business is not good.
Well, let's. I wanted to bring up your Southern Yellow Pine chart just to take a look at it real quick, just so people can look at that, because that shows one of the first markets that reacted. Right, it has quite a few more producers, a lot more truck volume, and like you said, the trucking ships a lot quicker. So let's see if we can bring up the actual SYP.
Go back a page, or you go down a page.
There we go. So, I mean, that kind of shows a sell-off, right? And here's the interesting thing, Matt. Sometimes from Materials Exchange, MX Lumber perspective, you could almost see these trends happening real time on our platform. We saw 2 or 3 weeks ago mills that weren't listing before all of a sudden coming on listing volume. Then we saw that volume disappear as secondaries came in, and some of them participated. Then the wood was all of a sudden gone. It seems like there was a big bite with secondaries buying into the pine, and that was trading quite a bit off of the print prices. And I think some of them are still trying to move some of that off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'd be real surprised to find out if there were brokers that had a lot of speculative inventory that was due for prompt shipment, and they had to get rid of it in a hurry because there's just no. I mean, a week ago you stepped in front of this thing, you're still 50. Now you're $50 offsides, and the treaters are still in a position where I mean that's your go-to people to sell the stuff to, unless you've got some upper grade 2x4s or some framing lumber for some independent retail yards, then you could be stuck with some lumber. So I don't think that I think the brokers might have been covering some shorts, and it appeared as though it was a spec buy, but I don't think the brokers were sitting on a real heavy position.
No, it's one of the interesting things. I think you and I talked about it, and I've seen it in spruce and I've seen it in pine now. Some of the offerings coming up that people are selling aren't just your standard 2 and better offerings. They're premium grade, prime grade, all the tenderloins, right? The good cuts.
Yeah, it's the home center stuff.
Right. So some of that, I mean, it makes sense that has to find its way back into the market somewhere, right? So it was interesting because remember we were saying some of these big boxes last year. When I walked through some of them, I'm like, that's regular 2 and better. That's not even premium lumber. They had such pull on their lumber. They were taking the hamburger, right?
Yeah.
Even though
Exactly.
they were at burger, they were taking the hamburger. Then you walk, all of a sudden they go through that cycle. We've seen this before. When they're not taking wood, that wood finds its way back into the market somewhere.
You know who's going to see the benefit of all this? Pallets are going to start looking really nice.
Yeah, that's one interesting thing we haven't talked about in a while. How's that pellet market? I wonder how if that's starting to that got crazy there for a year or so.
Well, you'd think it's got to be the same if you start having a curtailment of consumer demand and consumer sentiment, then the supply for pallets is going to be less as well. But
yeah, well, hey, let's look at your framing composite index. I want to see what's going on with that in this market. It probably has just started really reacting, and it's
you're going to see a big gap in replacement prices and what the dealers are charging.
There it is. There's your framing composite. And if all you new viewers that don't see this, this is a great index to look at. Matt, maybe I'll let you just talk real quick about what this is and why this is important and why so many people that are I don't want to say subscribers are members of your group, why this is so important to them.
Well, if you look at the black vertical lines indicate what the replacement cost for a contracted yard would be today if you were to buy the lumber today. The red line that follows it is the price that they're charging for contractors. And you can see that in a screaming up market that the price to contractors lags because replacement price is so much higher than what their inventory cost is. But now you've got a situation where prices have fallen so fast that the replacement cost is less than the price that they're quoting to the dealer. And it takes about 2 months to catch up. So I'm expecting that come May, the contractors are going to see some significantly lower prices in May than they did in January, February, and March, and even in April. But and probably even see those lower prices in May and June, regardless of the market going back up in a little bit in May here.
It was interesting. I was talking to a large panelizer framer in Illinois the other day. That sometimes buys from the retail yards, but also can buy, wholesale when he wants to. And he's been buying more direct now because if you think about it, the elasticity, a lot of these retail yards, they're keeping their price up here because they can. But he's able to now go out to the wholesale or the mill level and buy with that dip, right? So he's able to play it both ways. So I think most of these retails, one thing for sure, we're probably starting to get back into high-priced wood again, right? Where people are trying to move stuff off. It's hard to average down at these numbers. But again, I guess my question back to you is on the spruce versus the pine, is spruce going to come off at all?
Yeah, but probably we still get I guess the biggest news in spruce right now is curtailments because of timber supply or fiber shortage, and that's not going to change. They still have to reconcile that, but I think we've got more of a stability point in spruce, and we could probably say over the next 4 to 6 weeks where spruce just kind of hangs on, maybe goes up a little bit. More than likely, we're going to see I think the we'll see a pop in pine more than we will in spruce, but that's just going to be for because I think the home centers are under inventoried or undersupplied expectations. They think it's going to be worse than it really is. They're still going to. We still got the April, May, and June coming up. And the market's not going to completely die. They're still going to be doing some business. It's not going to be. It's not going to zero. They're still shipping good volumes of lumber, but the treaters just don't have a lot of extra wood on hand. And I think between now and the summer, we're going to probably see it. I think spring's going to be probably surprisingly better than when the home centers end the month in March and April and think it's going to be better. I think it's going to be better than what they think from their negative perspective of how March and April are going. I think May and June will be better.
Well,
But then I think we got it'll roll all up and people start getting pessimistic.
from the last 2 years that we just had that were off the charts, anything less than this isn't gonna. It would take a lot to do what we've done over the last year and a half, 2 years, right, on lumber.
No kidding, yeah.
It was crazy. Well, look, we're up against our half hour. I appreciate it, Matt. So if you want to join Matt, I'll put up Matt laymansguide.com, and he'll make you take it for free for a short bit of time. And it's
you got to take it for two. You can't pay until I earn you some money.
And it's a great guide, Matt. And like I said, I love the fact you let me sit in on your groups on Tuesday. I learn a ton every time in there. And also, if you want to come to mxlumber.com, Materials Exchange, we are the digital B2B market, basically creating transparency and allowing anybody on the buy side or the sell side to come in. We had a guy called me 2 days ago from a big national buying company that does a lot of stuff in concrete forming and so forth. And they didn't even know anything about him. I did the demo for him. The guy's, it's a young kid. He's like, I want on this thing, and I'm going to get all my buyers on this also, because the way that they're buying now was he didn't even realize something like this existed. Matt's been a big supporter of MX Lumber for a long time, and I will say a lot of his members are on here using it because Matt's been promoting the snot out of it for us, and I appreciate that, Matt.
Good for them. Good for you guys.
Yep. So everybody have a great rest of your Thursday. I'm headed off to finish the stuff that I didn't have for my tax guy last Thursday.
Oh, nice.
I thought he could just make it up for me, but he said he can't do that. So
now you got a fee.
Yeah, now I got to pay again. So everybody have a good time. Anything that you can go back and on Twitter, LinkedIn, and take the link off this. These run live off of the timelines. You can review these and watch them again later. I highly recommend it. And make sure you sign up with Matt and with Materials Exchange. And everybody have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.